Hi everybody, welcome to Spraguewoodturning. My name is Jim. If you haven't been here before, this is predominantly a turning channel. Where each and every week I show people how to make things on the lathe. This week we're going to be working with some maple burl, and I think there's some really nice figure, lots of chatoyance locked up in this piece, so it should be really interesting. And what I want to do is make kind of a covered vessel with a tall finial, tall delicate finial. I have issues making delicate finial, so this video, I'm hopefully going to sort that out. So first thing we need to do is clean up the bottom and get a glue block on the bottom of this, get it on the lathe and trimmed up, and then we'll figure out exactly what we're going to use for a lid and the finial material. So anyway, let's get a glue block on and we'll go from there. All right, well, welcome to the video. Yeah, we're going to clean this off using the Kutzall sanding disc. And then there's my homemade face plates made from 1/4-inch plate steel and just a nut that will fit onto my lathe, well, onto an adapter for my lathe. And once I get this nice and flattened, we'll put some hot melt glue on it. And, you know, we'll let that sit around for probably 10 or 15 minutes and get it on the lathe. Starting off with the Ellsworth gouge. The Hercules does make an appearance here later on, but for the most part, I'm going to use the Ellsworth gouge on this as there's no resin in it. Like leaving those real-time clips in so you can give an idea of, you know, how fast I'm going. And, you know, well, the lathe's doing 750, but you know, your feed rate with your gouge really makes a big difference when it comes to making clean cuts. And we'll say that, you know, this here is really, really hard. I was actually quite surprised how hard this was. I work with a lot of burl, and I'm not going to, I guess I will spoil it for you. This is not maple burl. One of the issues that I have when I'm roughing out is, you know, I'm roughing out, could be hundreds of bowls at a time in the past. So, of course, you get all of these pieces done and all the bark is stripped off them. So a lot of times it's hard to identify certain burls. And I initially thought this was a maple burl, but it is not. It's actually a yellow birch burl with a ton of chatoyance in it. So this is a really, really pretty piece of wood. I know that the bark, and probably one of the reasons why I labeled this as maple burl is because the bark on the top of the rim looks like maple bark. But trust me, this is not. This is absolutely birch. You'll see some dark inner bark like this on some yellow birch pieces as well. There are a couple voids that we need to clean up here, but now for the most part, this is a fairly clean bowl. And like I said, it's got a lot of chatoyance in it, so it's going to be real nice. Yeah, I remember years ago we were down near St. Stephen, New Brunswick here, and I can't remember exactly where it was, but anyway, there was a bunch of really old yellow birch trees growing along the coastline. And to look at the base of the tree, you would have no idea it was birch at all. To me, actually, these were like really, really old trees. And the bottom of the tree actually looked like a maple tree. It wasn't until you looked up into the canopy that you could actually see the yellow birch bark that, you know, so you could identify it. So a lot of times it can be tricky identifying woods, but like I've said in the past, a lot of times I identify woods by smell. I don't even need to look at it or pick it up. All I have to do is smell it, and I know what I'm working with. Figured I'd break out the Hercules to try and get up underneath of this rim area there. That's one good thing about the way this cutter is orientated. I don't use it too long. I just kind of get down to where I want to be, and then I switch back to the gouge. But yeah, I haven't done a all natural project in a while, and I know that there's, you know, I've probably lost a lot of people along the way because I've switched to resin, but I've also gained a lot of people because of the epoxy. I should say epoxy and not resin. It's the same thing. Anyway, switching, doing a few of these natural wood projects I think is a good idea. So, I'll try and incorporate more of them in the future. But, it's got to be a really spectacular piece of wood, to be honest with you. If it's just a normal plain Jane bowl that doesn't have a lot of character in it, then, that's not really great content for my channel. I'll just be honest with you. So that's why you don't see a lot of, natural wood projects being done anymore. So this is a Typhoon bit. Disregard the white that's on there. I don't know what that is. It's like dried CA glue or something like that. But the cutter, the bit below it works just fine. And I got this one at Lee Valley if you're curious. So, all right, I was looking for a new inlay that we haven't seen before, and Jim D sent me this a very long time ago, and it is copper powdered metal, and it's very, very fine. So I thought that would look neat in here, and I've also off camera cut out this area too because it had some cracks in it, so it's probably best to fix this as well. Try to make it look as natural as possible. All right, so what I'm going to do is put a little bit of glue in the void. That's probably too much. And hopefully this powder will just fall in there and fill in all those little areas. Put a little bit more glue in. In the past, when you've seen me do these inlays, usually I would put the inlay in and then flood it with the glue. This stuff is so fine that I was worried about the glue actually penetrating through it. So that's why I put it in stages. And we'll just use some accelerator to set it. Just about out of accelerator. And what I've done here is I cut a little bit into the side here, so we just need a little stop to make sure that the powder stays where we want it to stay. And again, just going to throw some little bit of glue here in the bottom. And we'll just fill it up with the powder again. This stuff is just super, super fine. It's very important to use the thin CA glue here and nothing else. If you try to use the medium or the thick, it's not going to work for you. There. Unfortunately, I think that's going to be it for today. We need to let this set up. If you try to do this too soon, it's all going to fly out and you'll have to redo it. And then you've got CA stuck to everything. So anyway, we're just going to leave this overnight and we'll see you guys in there tomorrow. So yeah, that was the end of the day anyway. So, when I would do these inlays, you need some time for that CA glue to set up, or if you're using epoxy, you need time for that to set up as well. So, I would typically put those inlays in just before I'm ready to quit or ready to move on to other work. And that way you give the glue or the epoxy ample opportunity to cure up before you try and tool it away. Because if you don't, you're just going to be sprayed with, trust me, I've had to replace shields because of it. Because it was all stuck to my shields and stuck to my clothes. So, it's just not worth it. Let it cure up properly and then trim it up the next day. To be honest with you, I was really skeptical when I put this in because it doesn't look like copper. But when it's trimmed back, it absolutely does. You can see the shine right there. It really does look like copper. I'm actually pretty impressed with it. And that little container is actually quite heavy. Now you'll notice that there's no lathe sounds here. When I was working with trimming that copper, I had the dust collector on, and it's just It's really loud in a temporary workshop. So anyway, it's just a real whiny pitch. So that's why I've muted the volume on it. But anyway, we're going to sand this from 60 to 180. That's the goal here today. Just finishing up with some 180 just to take away them sharp edges. There are a couple of little voids in it that are going to need to be filled. No big deal at all. I'll just rub a little bit in there, hit it with some CA glue. So anyway, we're going to use something that we haven't used before. Now I've always called this wenge, but the guys at Black Forest Company in Alberta, they make really fabulous tables. Well, they make all kinds of stuff, but they call it wenge. So I don't know. I don't have a lot of experience with this. Only small stock for bottle stoppers and this kind of business because it's fairly pricey in this country. But it's a very heavy, dense wood. Anyway, I think that this will make a really nice lid. Something like this. I do see that it does have a split in it, so we'll have to so there's a couple there actually, so we'll have to see what we're going to do with that. It's so busy that, you know, these little splits are hard to even pick up, but they are there. So yeah, actually some there and there. Yeah, I don't know. I might have to rethink that. I didn't notice all of these splits in here. Hold on. All right, so forget what I said previously. We're going to use Padauk. I got this from KJP Select Hardwoods in Ottawa. And you can see I paid 18 bucks for this little block. So they're not giving it away, that's for sure. So that will still make a nice top. All right, so, I mean, do we use the Padauk with the black wood? I mean, black goes with everything. So that's kind of, always put that in the back of your mind when you're trying to glue up some pieces. I just kind of want to make this kind of an exotic piece. Or do we use some of this absolutely fantastic pencil line spalted maple that I've stabilized? I mean, this is truly amazing stuff. And I know it looks like it's drawn on with a pen, but it's not. It's all the way through the blank. So that might be a better option. All right, I'm going to go with the maple. I might regret it, but light wood, dark lid to me is, I think, more, I don't know, it's better. Anyway, we'll get a glue block on this, get it on the lathe, and trim it up best we can. Yeah, you can see where stuff was sitting on it. Shade it, how it changes color. That was, something was sitting on it there, and you can see the color difference. It's pretty wild stuff, eh? Cherry actually does the same thing. All right, let's get a glue block on this. I would have liked to have seen this about another ½ inch larger or an inch larger, so I don't have a lot of room to spare here, so that's why it's important to get this centered. So drill a small hole in the block, and then the same thing in the waste block, and then once it's dipped in the hot melt glue, it'll be lined up perfectly. There. As soon as that glue hardens up, we'll be on the lathe. So we've got to be really careful on our sizing here. You'll see me check it fairly regularly once I get to that stage. Yeah, just trying to true things up, the front and back side, and then of course we'll be able to get our measurement. But it's definitely pretty wood, and as soon as you just strip off a little bit of it, you're gonna see that it's kind of back to its orangey looking color. So that's the dimension inside of the recess that the lid's going to be fitting in. So we got to sneak up on this and keep in mind that you still have sanding to do. So it's best to leave it a little on the tight side and then sand it down so that it fits properly into the bowl itself. Yeah, I really do like the look of this wood. Padauk is also called vermilion. I didn't know that. I've heard that term before, but I didn't know that they were referring to Padauk as that. And it's, if you're curious, it's in Central and Tropical West Africa. That's predominantly where this Padauk is grown. I'm sure there's other parts of the world, but that is where most of the commercial species of Padauk come from. So most of the exotics that we see here in Canada come from that region, Central America as well. And a lot of them are very toxic. This is not one of them. But woods like cocobolo, I know a lot of people take reactions, either skin reactions or respiratory reactions to it. So it's very important to wear a respirator to protect your lungs. And you should have your dust collector going the whole time. I would if I wasn't filming. So I've talked about this a few times now, and if you're having issues with stuff, the look of things, take it off the lathe, put them together, have a look at things while it's, kind of be sitting on a table, if you will. Yeah, you got your glue blocks on here, but you should have a good idea whether you like that profile or not. And I am. I think the bottom part of this is very bulbous, if you will, and so will this. And I think I'll just take a little bit off the height of this, but not a huge amount anyway. Maybe ½ inch max. And then hopefully we'll be able to make this area a little smaller so that when this goes onto the vacuum chuck, we don't have to fool around with it too much. But anyway, I'm thinking I'm liking that look for sure. Yeah, I'm just going to cut that down a little bit, and we'll go from there. And I won't be able to cut it down from this side. I'll have to cut it down from this side, because this side's kind of already set as far as what the fit is on the inside of this. So if you're looking for a safer exotic wood to work with, this is one of them. I did look it up, and apparently there's not a lot of reactions to Padauk. So, but as long as you can afford it, that's the other thing. The one thing that I really would like to see is in North America, we don't really get, say, logs are just split in half. I'd love to be able to get my hands on some exotic species where they still have the outside profile of the tree. That way, you can put them together with some resin, and hopefully it would look really cool. But anyway, that's I haven't seen it here in Canada anyway, or North America as far as that's concerned. But if you've got a source for a place that sells exotic woods that are still kind of in the round, I would love to hear from you. And for those who want to know, it does cut beautifully. It's not really super hard, so it's kind of a fun wood to work with. So for the lid and the finial, I'm just going to do the Waterlux finish, not the Pro Series, not the epoxy coat. And I'm going to sand them from 60 to 320. I don't typically go any higher than that when I'm working with just normal woods with no epoxy. So the inside bottom of the lid was sanded completely. And then of course I'm going to whittle this down and then part it from the waste block and then throw this onto the vacuum chuck and then finish the top. Yeah, there's the 3/16 parting tool from Crown. Just want to show you these filters. Exotic woods can be very toxic, and that will be going right into your lungs if you're not using a self-powered respirator or a respirator of some sort. Something is better than nothing, but you know, that gives you an idea how much material this respirator is collecting. And yeah, you don't want any of that exotic dust in your lungs. So to complete the top, we're going to use the vacuum chuck, and I have the complete one-way vacuum chucking system. I know a lot of people keep asking, what have I got? So anyway, I have the complete system. One of the important things, and this is very important, is that this gets on here and centered absolutely perfectly. Because when this is sanded on the outside, if it's off a little bit, it's going to really throw things off. So that's why it's important that this is on there dead center. And when this started, it was. But you'll see that we're going to have some issues coming up, but I don't want to spoil it. This is always one of the reasons why people like watching my channel is because they see me work through these issues and problems that arise. But I am taking very, very light cuts on the outside just to get rid of any tear out. And then just like underneath of it, I'm going to sand this again from 60 to 320. And then we'll be able to cut the groove and get the first coat of finish on this. But I'm going to use the combination skew and gouge, the Scotchy gouge. Again, I got this from Lee Valley here in Canada. And I'm just going to use this to start the hole or the mortise where we're going to be putting the finial. And that's the same gouge that I've turned into just a skew. You've probably seen me using it in my dreaded pepper mill videos. Anyway, pepper mills are not my favorite thing to do. And there she is. She's a beaut. Well, I think I actually really like this look. But, there's always a but. The lid is now too slack. And I believe what happened was when this was on the vacuum chuck, it was just moving ever so slowly. Because when I started, I noticed that the bottom side was running true. But as I kept going, I noticed there was a little bit more of a wobble. So that would explain why this is like this. It's not really a huge deal. Unfortunately, I think we're going to lose the majority of the copper inlay, but I'll have to cut this down to here and then recut the groove so that this fits nicely. You know, until you've got your form on the bottom done, it's very hard for me anyway to come up with a concept for a lid until I've got kind of the piece done on the bottom. But anyway, I mean, it's a little bit of a learning lesson. I believe there's about 1/8 of an inch of slack in this now, and that's just too much. If you know, I definitely want some slack to be there because these are pieces of wood, and wood moves with the seasons. So if it's too tight in the wintertime, you may not be able to pull the lid off this. So a little bit of slack is good, but too much like this is not. Yeah, it's about 1/8 of an inch, something like that. Anyway, trim this up and we'll be we'll be on to the finial. So, probably, I'm going to say probably the best way to do these is to come up with the concept in your head and do the bowl, do not cut the groove, then do the lid, and then fit the lid to the finished piece after everything's been sanded. Now I missed the sizing on this again, so you'll see me come in a little, step it in a little bit. But there was lots of room here to do this. The only real downer was the fact that we got rid of that copper inlay on the top. That actually looked really nice. I will say this about that copper inlay though: if you don't get it all filled in one shot, after it was filled again, you could tell where I fixed those spots. So I found that kind of interesting. So again, we're just going to sand that up so that it's ready for the epoxy coat. All right, so now on to making the finial. And if you've been around for a while, you know that I've got finial issues. It's little dainty work that, to be quite honest with you, I just never did in the past. It wasn't really my business model. Prior to coming to YouTube, I was a production bowl turner. That's what I was. That production bowl turner that did virtually every bowl with inlays. That's kind of what I was known for. So I didn't do a lot of center work. And for the people that are not familiar with lathes, this is center work because your work is pinched between centers. I did not have a plan going into this, as you can probably tell. But in the end, I actually really like the way this looks, and hopefully you guys do too. I know that this is probably, my third or fourth attempt here on YouTube at making a delicate finial, or a finial that kind of matches what I'm working on. And I think I hit it this time. But anyway, leave me a little comment and let me know. Let me know if you think that I did. But yeah, I'm back again with the combination skew and gouge. And oh, look at this spalting on that. It's just amazing. And again, there's no volume. The dust collector was running, and it's just too much of a whiny pitch to leave it run this long. So that's why I didn't mean to lose that support on the outer end. So now I'm forced to use my hand as a support. And again, for people new people that are learning to turn, something this small is very hard to work on and not break off. Keep in mind that this is stabilized, so it's fairly solid, but the wood was stabilized because it was soft. So you're gonna have a lot of that stabilizing resin within the piece, and sometimes I find that can be really brittle. So that's one thing to keep in the back of your mind if you're ever going to go down this road as well. But anyway, you'll just see me trying to look at things, and at first I wanted kind of a pointy top on this, and I'm like, no, maybe not. So you'll see me take it off here, again supporting with my index finger so that it's not going to break off. I thought about leaving that on the top too, and I'm like, now I want to get rid of that. So off it goes, and then we're just going to thin this out and then eventually figure out what the sizing is going to be for the tenon that's going to fit into the lid. Also, when you're working on this kind of stuff, if you put too much pressure on the very top of this to hold it, to keep it from vibrating, you can create some friction and it can burn you. So, I usually don't go that hard. Just a light touch to keep it from vibrating and keep it in center. But yeah, ideally that up near the tailstock end, that would have stayed there right to the very end, and then I would have just cut that off, and then we wouldn't have that vibration. But man, look at that spalting. So anyway, we're going to start sanding this at 120, and like I said earlier, we're going to go to 320 on this, and then we'll use some thick CA glue from Starbond to glue this in place. But yeah, just a crazy piece of wood. I'd love to have a bowl, a large bowl, just full of this. So there's the thick CA glue. Didn't have the right bottle, so I just wrote thick on it, but it is from Starbond. And yeah, be careful you don't get any glue on anything, because if you do, you could be in trouble. All right, what I have here is 3 ounces of the Pro Series and a silicone barbecue brush. Again, nothing new here. One of the main reasons for doing this is because there's a lot of end grain in this. And I thought by using the Pro Series here, it would seal up that end grain and we would use less finish. But anyway, I think it's a good practice. Didn't see the need for it on the lid at the time. Well, there it is. 100% definitely yellow birch burl. Chatoyancy Galore. Oh yeah, right there, look at that. Same thing there. Very cool. All right, let's do the lid. Love the stop loss bags, but I do find that sometimes it's hard to get the finish all the way to the very top, and you end up with some dried material that sometimes will come out. So all I'm doing is straining it through an old gauze pad that I ordered, that I planned on doing some finishing with, that it didn't work. And it'll remove all of that so you don't get any of it in your finish. Right, so for the lid, we're going to just use the Waterlux like we usually do for the last 2 or 3 coats. So my limited experience with Padauk, I would make bottle stoppers, like I said earlier, maybe a knife handle, and I would always use a friction polish. So this is the first time using a film finish, so I noticed it did suck up quite a bit of finish. There you go, what a beautiful color. And what do you think of our finial? Be lots of comments, I'm sure. Yep. Need to work on my finial game. I mean, I don't mind it. I think it actually looks pretty decent. Maybe this was a little bit smaller, maybe. I don't know. Let me know. Anyway, we will see you tomorrow for the second coat finish. All right, well, good morning. It is the next day. Yeah, a fair bit of epoxy sitting in there, so we're going to have to grind that all back. But hopefully that'll seal up all those pores of the wood, and we'll get a nicer finish on it. I will have to take the parting tool, clean this up. But other than that, should be pretty routine. I'm going to probably start sanding here at 120 since this is so heavy. And we'll go, well, we're only going to go to 320. No resin in this piece. Not required to go any higher than that. Might have to hit this with some CA glue in here though. Don't know if it got totally filled in. So back again with a 3.5-inch dipple disc from sandpaper.ca. If you do order from them, they will come in. They're a different disc now. These I'm still using up a lot of my old stock. I'll try and incorporate the new ones into some future projects that I do here. But anyway, they're great discs for the money that they are. Give them a try. And just last thing I want to do is just take the parting tool and clean up where that epoxy was sitting in there. Be very, very hard to sand that out. And then hit it with some 320. All right, here is your first coat of Waterlux Original Gloss. Still getting messages from people. What am I using to apply the finish? Old t-shirt material, lint-free cotton rags work fantastic. That's all you need. Well, had to do some pretty aggressive sanding on this, so you know you can see it's pretty dry. Yeah, that's the problem with working with a lot of end grain stuff like this. It will eat finish like you can only imagine. And I'd hope by using the epoxy coat that it would slow that down. I think it has. I mean, if I had just put the Waterlux on this, it would probably be almost matte at this point with its first coat. But since it's got that epoxy coat underneath of it, the Pro Series, it's not eating it up as much. So I don't know, hopefully 2 will do it, but I think realistically it's going to be 3. Look at that right there. Isn't that crazy? Wow. All right, lid coming up. So just like I do with every coat, I'm going to buff between each coat of finish, and I'm using the Triple E buffing compound from the Beal buffing system. And then of course we'll clean it up with some denatured alcohol. Luckily that finial was small enough that it went right inside of the lathe, so I didn't have to worry about that. Keep that in mind if you ever want to use your vacuum chuck to do something like this. And then of course we'll put the Waterlux on this as well. I was getting a lot of the color coming off the wood onto the rag from using the denatured alcohol to clean it. So it's not just buffing compound, it's the color of the wood too. Well, that definitely looks a lot better in its second coat. Man, that pencil line spalting is just amazing stuff. Yep. Paduke, I love the color of that, but it will brown over time. But right now, she's a pretty nice color. All right, well, if there's a third coat, and there will be, I believe, mind you, it looks like it's covered quite nicely, but you can see it already starting to get a little dry there. Oh, excuse me. So yeah, it's going to need another coat, and then of course we'll have to do the bottom as well, but that gives you a really good look as to what that's going to look like when it's done. All right, yeah, I'm not going to bother showing the second coat finish on the bowl because it's going to be the same as pretty much what I just did. Well, what I did here. Anyway, we'll see you when we do the bottoms. Not bottoms. So after 2 coats of finish, we're going to cut this piece off the waste block. Actually, I haven't done this in quite some time, so it kind of brings me back to the old days. But just going to use the parting tool here from Crown, and when that's done, I'll cut it off on the handsaw. You'll see I leave about an inch or so of material that's left. Pretty tough burl, so I mean it's not much worries about it coming off. But if you get a catch, yeah, you can definitely run into some trouble. So back onto the vacuum chuck again this week, and yeah, once this is done, I sanded the bottom from 120 to 320. All right, well, that's going to do it for the video. Thank you so much for everybody that has watched all the way through. Special shout out to the members. You guys are awesome. Well, be interesting to see what you guys think about this beauty little covered dish. Oh, that Chatoyancy is just amazing. I know I've said that probably about 100 times in this video. And that copper inlay, if I can, there we go. It's so shiny, it's hard to film. Thanks again, Jim D, for sending those inlay materials. I really do appreciate it. Yeah, full of character. Absolutely love this piece. Hopefully you guys do as well. Here's the, I'll show you the very bottom. Very busy bottom, lots of stuff to put on there, but it is all on there, and as you can see, there is no finish. This will require at least another coat of finish on the inside. Well, 1 more should do it, and then of course 3 on the bottom. And as far as the lid is concerned, get that. So it's still going to need a couple of coats of finish under the lid. But anyway, let me know what you think about my finial game this week. I know that light's probably not helping you any. But anyway, I'll put some rotating footage up like I usually do at the end, and you'll be able to see it. I just want to explain to you again what happened here with the vacuum chuck. Vacuum chucks are awesome pieces of kit. I highly recommend getting them. But in this case, the lid itself is almost the same size as the vacuum chuck. So when it was put under vacuum, it eventually did this number and moved on me a little bit. And I had a piece like that happen to me before. If you remember, it was black with hypershift, and the bottom got really messed up on it. And that's what happened. As the vacuum just kind of pulled it down and it does one of these numbers. Now, why is that? Well, that's because it doesn't fit right inside the piece. If it fit right inside of the piece, you wouldn't have that problem like the bowl. You don't have to worry about the bowl because it goes right inside of it. So, you know, very unlikely that that's going to move. But if it was being held out by the rim, then you can get that movement in it as the vacuum pulls on it. So that's what happened with the fitting of the lid. Regardless, we saved it, so I'm happy with that. Anyway, it's a beautiful piece, and it is for sale. If you're interested, send me an email to spraguewoodturning@gmail.com, and I will disclose the price then in case it is a gift. This will not make it for Christmas. If you're thinking you can get this and get it for Christmas, 3 coats of finish on the bottom. I mean, there's easily 3-4 days before it even be ready to ship. So, and I ship Canada Post, and they are backed up right now. They're back to work, but they are certainly backed up right now. But it will be available for maybe a late Christmas gift. So anyway, if you're interested, send me an email. Oh, I should tell you the size on this before I set it down. So at its widest dimension, it's 7 3/4 across. Here, 8 1/4 inches tall to the bottom to the top of the finial, and it's my typical 1/2 inch in thickness. Don't forget to put designer epoxy in the comments down below to be entered into the next giveaway at 140,000 when we get there. And of course, that's only for continental USA and Canada. And by leaving a comment down below, it doesn't matter to me on that giveaway. Whatever I make, I'll ship worldwide. So please comment. Doesn't matter where you live in the world. Comment away. Next week is going to be a conglomerate piece. I'll call it that. And we're not exactly sure what it's going to be. Could be pieces, but we'll have to see. And the last thing that I want to do is wish everybody a Merry Christmas, those who are practicing. And, I will be back here on next Friday. So that'll give you something to watch over the holidays. So come on back next Friday. All right, well, that's it. I'm out of here. Take care. Stay safe. Don't forget the bell. Please share my videos with your friends. That is the largest and best way for me to build my presence here on YouTube. I would really appreciate it. Happy holidays. See you next Friday.